Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into a topic that's both intense and crucial: blood and fire. What's happening in Syria? Just a couple of days ago, we witnessed a significant turn in the Syrian civil war, which has been raging for 13 long years. The anti-government forces have almost effortlessly taken control of Aleppo, Syria's second-largest city in the north. Now, you might think, well, losing a city isn't surprising in a prolonged war, but here's the kicker: U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said it best: "I'm not surprised the Syrian civil war has reignited. I'm surprised by the weakness of the Assad regime." Can you believe that? The rebels managed to seize Aleppo so quickly without facing much resistance at all.
Wow, that's really shocking. I mean, after all this time, you'd think the Assad regime would be more resilient, right? What do you think changed so suddenly?
Great question. You see, for the past 13 years, the Syrian government has been propped up by Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah. They were in a position of power, especially after 2020, when Putin visited Syria and declared the war nearly over. But then, the Ukraine war broke out, and Russia got bogged down. Their focus shifted, and suddenly, Syria lost its biggest ally. It's like a house of cards. Since the foundation is shaky, everything starts to collapse. And at the same time, Iran and Hezbollah were also preoccupied with their own conflicts with Israel. So, the loss of external support left the Syrian government vulnerable.
Oh, I see. So it's like when you're playing a game of Jenga and someone pulls out the wrong piece and the whole thing just crashes down? But what about the people living there? I mean, it sounds like a nightmare.
Exactly. And here's the uncomfortable truth: many Syrians, especially in urban areas, might actually see the continuation of the Assad regime as the least bad option. I know it sounds harsh, but while Bashar al-Assad and his government are brutal, they've maintained a semblance of a modern secular state. There's a constitution, a parliament, and elections, at least on paper. The alternative? The stronger anti-government factions, like the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, are recognized terrorist organizations by the UN and many countries. They aim to establish a theocratic state, which is a terrifying prospect for many.
Wait, so the rebels are actually worse? That's mind-blowing. It's like choosing between a bad boss and a tyrant. But how did these groups even gain power?
Great analogy. The rise of groups like HTS can be traced back to the chaos of the civil war. Initially, there were liberal opposition forces that wanted a modern republic, but they were crushed by both the Assad regime and more radical factions. It's like a survival of the fittest scenario. Those who were more extreme survived, while the moderate voices were silenced. And now, the landscape is dominated by groups that are far from democratic.
That's so wild. So it's like a reality show where the most extreme contestants end up winning? But what about the Kurds? I've heard they're trying to establish their own territory.
Exactly. The Kurds have carved out a significant area in northeastern Syria, taking advantage of the chaos. They're a marginalized group in the Middle East, and they've been fighting for autonomy. They control oil-rich territories, but their ambitions are limited. They're not looking to expand aggressively, they just want to secure their own region. It's a delicate balance, and they're waiting for the right moment to push for more autonomy.
So they're like the quiet kid in class who just wants to be left alone but is ready to stand up if pushed too far. But what about the other factions? It sounds like a total mess.
It is. The situation is incredibly fragmented. In Idlib, for instance, various factions are fighting for control, and it's a brutal internal struggle. It's reminiscent of the Gaza Strip, where factions are constantly at each other's throats. The more moderate groups are being eliminated, leaving behind the more radical elements. It's a vicious cycle of violence and extremism.
That's just heartbreaking. So what does the future hold for Syria? Is there any hope for peace?
Unfortunately, the outlook is grim. Whether Assad remains in power or is overthrown, the prospects for a peaceful, democratic Syria are slim. The country is a microcosm of the broader Middle East issues caught between fear and blind faith. People are often forced to choose between a military dictatorship or a theocratic regime. It's a tragic reality, and the citizens are left to navigate this nightmare.
It's like they're stuck in a never-ending cycle of fear. But What about the international community? Can't they do something?
The international community has been largely ineffective. Countries are more focused on their own interests rather than genuinely helping the Syrian people. It's a complex web of alliances and conflicts, and unfortunately, the people of Syria are the ones who suffer the most. They're caught in a situation where they can only choose between bad and worse options, living in constant fear of violence and oppression.
That's just. Wow. It's a heavy topic, but I'm glad we're discussing it. It's important to understand the human side of these conflicts. Thanks for shedding light on this. It's, eye-opening.
Absolutely. It's crucial to keep these conversations going. The more we understand, the better we can advocate for change. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Until next time.